very much. Well, first of all, I want to thank Charlie Crist for running for governor. You know, when you put yourself out there and you invite Governor Scott to do what he does so well, spend that money on negative ads, it takes a little grasp, but he's got it, and I appreciate that. I want to thank Congresswoman Kathy Castor. I want to thank Senator Bill Nelson, my longtime friend, for what he said. But I want to thank Florida for being so good to me and to Hillary. I'm very grateful to you. I want you to know how strong my family feels about this race. This is Hillary's birthday, and I had to get an excused absence to come down here. Look, I want to leave you with just a few thoughts here. I do this work in a different way than most people do. Most of my life's my foundation. I work with Democrats and Republicans and Independents. I start with the problem instead of the politics and figure out how to solve it with the people instead of the politics. And here's what I know. First, we went through a horrible financial crash in 2008. And it tickles me, since the other party was in power in Washington, to hear the governor, the current governor, try to blame Charlie Crist for what happened in Florida for something he didn't have a lick to do with. It takes, you know, it's a pretty brash thing to do. But anyway, here's what happened. All over the world for the last 150 years, whenever you have one of these financial crashes, it usually takes 10 years for a country to gain all the jobs back it lost. Okay? That's average, 150-year average, including in America 1872, 1892, 1932, and then 2008. Japan, 1990, took them more than 12 years. Takes a long time for people to get comfortable with lending again, borrowing again, taking a chance again, believing again, hiring people again. Everything shuts down when you think the wheels are running off. We got our jobs back last month in 6 years. 6 years, not 10 years. Now, I don't expect anybody to thank the administration in Washington because they don't feel it yet. But that's not the point. Here's the point. Why this election is so important. We are now, yeah, that's it. But here's why. Why is we are finally in a position to grow the Florida economy and shape it. And you have to decide whether you want to grow this economy from the middle class out, more jobs, higher wages, and make sure every poor person who's willing to do it has a chance to work his or her way into that middle class. Whether you want to go back to trickle-down economics, and you think it would work better if the people who have already gotten literally 95% of the gains of the last 14 years since I left office were given more, and all of a sudden they would miraculously create economic recovery. What you want, I think, is shared prosperity. You want us to share responsibility for solving our problems. You want us to work together. And here's what I want to say. The work I do today around America and all over the world, here's what works. What works is when you have inclusive governance, inclusive economics, and communities where people work together. Every place you go where people are fighting all the time, good things are not happening, including Washington, D.C. Every place you go where people say, let's put people first to find the problem, have our arguments, and then get the show on the road, good things are happening. Charlie Crist will get the show on the road. And he will grow the economy from the middle out. He believes we ought to do this together. Inclusive government, inclusive economics. It's not any more complicated than that.
No.
Look at what you've got. You've got all this diversity. You've got all these young people. You've got all this sun. You've got every asset in the wide world. You've got great colleges. Look, this is really about making the right move. Are you going to do it together?
Yes.
Or are you going to do it apart? Are you going to do it from the top down? Are you going to do it from the middle out and give poor folks a chance to earn their piece of the American dream? Are you going to make sure that every child in Florida can afford to go to college or get good job training and pay it back without going bankrupt? Or are you going to let the thing keep going the way it was? Look, every single issue comes down to that. And he'll do it. He'll do the right thing.
Yes.
And you know that you've got two people who have both been governor, who have dramatic different visions. One has succeeded by dividing the state, one from the other, and promoting trickle-down economics. That's the other fellow. One wants to grow it together. And I'll tell you what, this Medicaid expansion is a classic example. You have given up billions of dollars in federal aid, up to 63,000 jobs, good paying jobs, and 1 million Florida citizens would have health care coverage who don't. Now, in my native state, Arkansas, we did this. And let me just tell you what happened. We had this great aggressive expansion of the Medicaid program. We did it through a private insurance plan. We had the biggest drop in uninsurance and lack of insurance in the country. I want you to understand what you're up against. Our neighbors in Louisiana, they did what Mr. Scott and his party wanted to do. So Blue Cross and Blue Shield and all of our insurers, they just announced what's going to happen in Arkansas next year. Rates, health insurance rates are going down 2%. Not just for the people that got insurance, for 100% of people. And then they announced what they're going to do down in Louisiana, where they didn't do any of this stuff. Rates are going up 18%. Why? Because if you don't provide people with health insurance, and they go to a rural hospital, or they go to an urban hospital, or they go to a teaching hospital, the rest of us will pay their bills and higher premiums. So again, if you have inclusive economics and inclusive politics, and you do what's fair for everybody, we're all better off. Charlie Crist knows that, and that's why he should be governor. Hey, I just want to say one other thing. I got here not too late last night, and I turned on the television, and I saw one of these endless streams of negative ads against my candidate for governor.
That's all they got.
And this ad, it made his face look like that he was a jigsaw puzzle. They keep turning the jig. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And the whole point is, oh, he's been in 3 different parties. He doesn't believe anything. What you need is a guy like the current governor with real conviction, even if he's wrong about everything. I mean, that was the argument, right? Let me tell you something I know. I ran for office for the first time 40 years ago. And one thing I know is that you can judge the level of conviction of a politician and what's in their heart by the circumstances under which they will knowingly do something that is not only unpopular, but against their own personal interests. I'll give you an example. I had a friend who was president of Mexico, whose party had held the presidency since 1917. He gave them, the people, a competitive election knowing they would lose. And he did it anyway because it was right, because they needed freedom. Okay, now, the first time he, in the go-around, his ads never tell you, he was a Republican, right? He pushed for and signed a bill to give people the right to vote when they got out of the penitentiary. And I want to think about that, you know. This is Sunday, and for those who find it a holy day, it means you believe in a God of second chances. We often don't believe in a God of second chances. Charlie Crist said, I'm going to do this. Now, that didn't make any political sense for him to do that. Why? Because as compared with the rest of the population, people who get out of prison are disproportionately likely to be African American, Hispanic, immigrants, low income, in other words, people who overwhelmingly vote for Democrats. He did it when he was a Republican. He did it because he thought it was right. Don't tell me